For 60 years, Impact Aid has helped federally impacted school districts educate millions of children nationwide. As we celebrate the anniversary of this seminal program, let's look back at how it all started and where the program stands today. In 1945, World War II ended, and hundreds of thousands of troops stationed in Europe came home to cheering crowds. But reality set in, and local communities were forced to deal with the ensuing population surge. Inadequate support led to severe conflicts, resulting in refusals by some school districts to educate federally connected children. In September of 1950, President Harry S. Truman signed 2 laws, the first of which allowed the Commissioner of Education to help finance school construction. The second provided funding to operate schools overburdened with increased attendance as a result of federal activities and deprived of local revenues because of the tax-exempt status of federal properties. In the program's first year, just over 1,700 local educational agencies received federal funding totaling more than $29.6 million. Between 1955 and 1965, the program grew to include children of parents in the uniformed services residing on base, off-base military children, and students residing on Indian land. In 1965, the Impact Aid statute was the vehicle Congress used to pass the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, but 1969 marked the last time Impact Aid was fully funded. By 1970, nearly 65% of school districts nationwide received Impact Aid funding. Recognizing the need to organize, school superintendents, using trips to the American Association of School Administrators conferences, formed the Impacted Area Schools Information Service. It was formally organized in 1973 when it received its 501c4 status from the IRS. The organization had a board of 20 members and 50 state representatives. The name changed to the National Association of Federally Impacted Schools in 1983, sharing office space in Roslyn, Virginia with AASA. NAFIS moved to its present location in 1985. The next 20 years would be a struggle for the Impact Aid program. The major theme in Washington, amidst the inflation of the 70s and the recession of the 80s, was cost containment. Even though the Impact Aid community looked to expand the program in 1971 by including low-rent housing, Impact Aid faced its darkest hour during the Reagan years of the 1980s. In fiscal year 82, the overall program dropped from $772 million to $418 million. But a lone senator from South Dakota, Jim Abner, added $110 million to the program with the help of a coalition of senators mainly from states west of the Mississippi River. However, those same senators quickly became embittered because their states weren't seeing the monetary benefits of their labor. Their message to the Impact Aid community was, change the formula to reflect a more equitable distribution of money, or lose our support. Due to internal struggles in 1988, NAFIS member school districts could not find consensus, and after bringing 5 different reauthorization proposals to Congress, Representative William Ford of Michigan uttered the now infamous words,
"But as an association, the wheels have come off their buggy, and it's about time somebody told them that, and in trying to accommodate the warring factions with Impact Aid, what we succeeded in doing was dividing all of the committee so that we couldn't reach a consensus."
And although the program was reauthorized, it continued to suffer from an appropriation far below the amount recipient school districts needed. Impact Aid's fortune didn't fare much better as President Bill Clinton entered office. It was once again targeted for deficit reduction. The administration proposed a 3-year phase-out of Category B students and the elimination of the Federal Properties Program, but after debate and testimony of more than 70 members of Congress, the phase-out was turned down. To that end, in 1994, NAFIS implemented the infamous Phoenix proposal that created the Learning Opportunity Threshold, a defined dependency formula when funds are insufficient to fully fund the program. Congress viewed the new formula as a rational approach. At the same time, the NAFIS Federal Property Subgroup, Section 8002, was facing challenges of its own. During the same year, the federal property payment calculation was changed to a highest and best use formula. The new assessment took into account the condition of taxable property adjacent to the federal property, but it caused funding levels to drop to only 6% of the maximum amount a district should receive. The midterm election of 1994 brought major change to Washington. For the first time in 40 years, Republicans took control of Congress. In an attempt to reduce government, the House Budget Committee initiated a review of federal programs and proposed the Impact Aid program be phased out over a period of 5 years. After weeks of intense work by NAFIS and its membership in early 1995, along with a letter of support sent to the Budget Committee signed by 97 members of the House, the plan was scrapped. NAFIS and its supporters in Congress, recognizing that at any time the program could be targeted, formed the House Impact Aid Coalition. A Senate Impact Aid Coalition was formed in 1997. The coalitions would again lead the charge in 2002 when the Bush administration attempted to eliminate portions of the program. During the late 90s and into the new millennium, the funding formula began to show flaws. Many districts felt dollars weren't equally distributed after all payments were made, becoming more evident as funding began to decline after 2002. In 2007, Congress began to consider reauthorizing the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, a process that still remains unfinished. The challenge facing NAFIS was to make the necessary changes in the law to ensure all districts felt they had a buy-in to the program. Today, that challenge continues. The NAFIS membership has worked for the past 4 years to mold a reauthorization proposal that will ensure all districts are fairly funded, based on the true value of the federal property and a district's dependency on impact aid dollars. And although the impact aid community looks forward to a successful completion of an ESEA reauthorization, one fact remains. The impact aid law, signed by President Truman, was based on the premise that the federal government has an obligation to provide school districts and the communities they serve a payment that will pay in full the tax revenue lost due to the presence of the federal government. Until that day arrives, that obligation will remain unfulfilled. Through it all, Impact Aid has weathered the storms on Capitol Hill and among its own members. The program is strong, clear in its mission to ensure all students receive a quality education, and we are proud to claim that Impact Aid is the original education program.